It's happening all over the United States. It's called organized gang stalking, and there is no law against it. The phenomenon was first noted by a German industrial psychologist, Dr. Heinz Lehmann. He noted that a group of people would target an individual to force the individual out of the workplace, and he called what they did mobbing. Authors Noah Zanoli, Ruth Distler Schwartz, and Gail Purcell have described how it works in their book, Mobbing USA, Emotional Abuse in the Workplace. Whether taking place in the workplace or in the community, mobbing, as it is called when it happens in the workplace, or organized gang stalking, as it is called when it happens in the community, involves a kind of psychological torture whose goal is to drive the target out or to neutralize the target. In the community, it often works by sensitizing the target to a stimulus all of the gang stalkers use. The stimulus is often an everyday thing, for instance, the color red. The thing that makes the stimulus so aversive is the frequency with which it occurs. A group of 20 or 30 or 50 or more of organized gang stalkers might be involved in harassing the target, so the target is continuously harassed with the same stimulus, but by different individuals. Every time the target enters or leaves his or her home, for instance, an organized gang stalker will be there with something red on. The target's routines are ascertained. Neighbors, afraid of being gang stalked themselves, might alert gang stalkers when the target is leaving his or her home. When the target walks on the beach, 3 or 4 gang stalkers wearing red might be there. When the target opens his or her blinds in the morning, the first thing he or she will see is a person wearing red. Organized gang stalkers typically try to be there on entrances, exits of the target, so that when the target comes out of a store, the first thing he or she sees will be a gang stalker in red. It is the frequency of the stimulus that makes it so aversive, and the isolation of the target. Gang stalkers often target people without support systems. Another book has recently been published by Oxford Press called Mobbing, Causes, Consequences, and Solutions by Maureen Duffy and Len Sperry. Law enforcement defines gang stalking as when multiple persons organize to systematically stalk and harass a person, whether emotionally or physically. The torture program described. It could start with being reported by a neighbor or a fireman who are part of fusion centers. No due process, no chance to be informed of what has been said against you. The United States government has legitimized personal vendettas. The target is put under conspicuous surveillance by police, firemen, and Stasi-like gang stalkers using red cars, red trucks, or who wear or carry red. It starts from the minute the target leaves his or her home. Same time exit entry gang stalking is the standard gang stalking tactic. You go out, they are there. They use beeping when you take your dog out, go into your yard at other times. They set off car alarms or have citizen stalkers use power equipment, leaf blowers, etc. in their yards so that the target experiences a wall of noise if she tries to take a walk. They have dogs jump out of car windows, let dogs off their leashes, run up at you, use dogs to intimidate. They use noise to disturb sleep. They use GPS and other things to track you. Red cars are at intersections, more often in front of you than in back of you. They like to park red cars at the end of parking lots where they are noticed. A gang stalker in red might be there when you exit a store, or a red car or truck will pass you as you exit. A gang stalker might be talking on a phone as they pass you by and say your name to the person they are speaking to. They use children in gang stalking, even preschoolers, teenagers, older people, handicapped people. The Stasi in East Germany also used children. They get neighbors involved in gang stalking to socially isolate the target and to gang stalk the target when they enter or leave their home, to take their garbage out, pick up their mail. We've seen these kinds of dirty tricks and invasive surveillance before in COINTELPRO program used by the FBI in the 60s and the 70s. Under COINTELPRO, illegal means were used to disrupt or discredit and smear reputations. There were false media stories planted, bogus leaflets published, correspondence was forged, anonymous letters sent out, anonymous telephone calls made, misinformation spread. Parents and employers and landlords and school officials were strong-armed to make trouble for targets. Along with local police, the FBI conducted illegal break-ins, committed vandalism, used psychological warfare to frighten and neutralize targets. The Attorney General under President Bush rescinded anti-COINTELPRO regulations, opening the door to COINTELPRO 2. The Attorney General under President Obama hasn't closed that door by writing new guidelines for the FBI. The last COINTELPRO program ended when activists broke into FBI offices and stole documents proving it existed. But that was only after it went on for 15 years. The Church Committee, a Senate committee which investigated it, said, unless new and tighter controls are established by legislation, domestic intelligence activities threaten to undermine our democratic society and fundamentally alter its nature. The government gang stalking we are seeing today had another predecessor, the American Protective League. Wikipedia says of the American Protective League, the American Protective League was an American organization of private citizens that worked with the federal law enforcement agencies during World War I era to identify suspected German sympathizers and to counteract the activities of radicals, anarchists, anti-war activists, and left-wing labor and political organizations. At its zenith, the APLE claimed 250,000 members in 600 cities. Attorney General Palmer, at that time, called the APL materials gossip, hearsay, information, conclusions, and inferences, and added that information of this character could not be used without danger of doing serious wrong to the individuals who were probably innocent. But whereas Woodrow Wilson tried to stop it, Barack Obama has embraced this latest program. Let's listen to what he said as he was trying to become president to a group in Colorado.
We cannot continue to rely only on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives that we've set. We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded.
A security civilian force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded as our military. This is what President Obama told a group of Coloradoans he wanted in becoming president. Was he giving this red state a signal? Vote for me, and I will continue the neighborhood watch group Stasi that was started under George Bush. Whereas both of Obama's parents were people of deep principle, Obama in his book, Dreams from My Father, called his mother's values impractical. His father almost had his economic life destroyed by standing up for principle. Obama in his book looks at what his father did as foolishness. It seems back then he made a decision not to follow in his parents' footsteps. From the ACLU. Unfortunately, it appears that these old tendencies have once again come to the fore. Law enforcement agencies across America continue to monitor and harass groups and individuals for doing little more than peacefully exercising their First Amendment rights. A thorough search and review of news accounts by the ACLU reveals that these law enforcement behaviors have taken place in at least 36 states, plus the District of Columbia in recent years. Americans have been put under surveillance or harassed by police just for deciding to organize, march, protest, espouse unusual viewpoints, and engage in normal, innocuous behaviors, such as writing notes or taking photographs in person. from an article entitled "The Justice Department Refuses to Reveal GPS Tracking Memos." Two key memos outlining the Justice Department's views about when Americans can be surreptitiously tracked with GPS technology are being kept secret by the Department of Justice, despite a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit filed by the ACLU to force their release. The Justice Department's unfortunate decision leaves Americans with no clear understanding of when we will be subjected to tracking, possibly for months at a time, or whether the government will get a warrant. This is yet another example of secret surveillance policies, like the Justice Department's secret opinions about the Patriot Act's Section 215 that simply should not exist in a democratic society. Privacy law needs to keep up with technology, but how can that happen if the government won't even tell us what its policies are? My government gang stalking began 7 years ago. I was not an activist. I was minding my own business, teaching elementary school at Marlboro Elementary in Marlboro, New York, where I taught for 29 years. It started with a conflict with a bully sociopath fireman. At first, just he stalked me. Then his old friends. Then firemen, fire chiefs in their SUVs, firemen in their fire trucks. Then white ambulances, both private and public. Then police. Then these people wearing red or carrying red or using red cars and trucks. I would go to Petco. An ambulance would pull in after me. I would go to the Newburgh Mall. Firemen would be there who would brush up against me as I walked in the mall and with my brother. I would walk to Bonton's in the mall. A fire alarm would go off when I reached the store. I would exit the store. A red car would pass in front of me. I would go out to the main road. A police car siren screaming would pass in front of me. Police did dangerous things on the road, threatening both my brother and my life, as well as that of other motorists. They used dogs to intimidate me. I would go to Home Depot. A dog would jump out of a car window. I was stalked on my way moving to California, in Oklahoma, Arizona, Texas, New Mexico, and now I am gang stalked every day where I live in California. They get all surrounding neighbors to gang stalk me wherever I live. They use noise to disrupt sleep. They use same-time exit-entry gang stalking. At first wearing red, using red cars, now in my neighborhood just stalking every time I leave my home. Now, yes, I am an activist, working every day to stop government gang stalking, to make our country aware. The narrative we grew up with, believing about our country, is false. America has an ugly fascist shadow. Join me every Tuesday in boycotting the corporate media, which will not expose this outrageous government gang stalking to the public. This Tuesday and every Tuesday, boycott CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, until they fulfill their responsibility to the American public and investigate government gang stalking.